I've arrived at Conwire. These guys manufacture cables for the automotive industry. I purchased an adjuster which is very similar to the original one. I'm just waiting for my crimper to arrive so I can crimp it on. These firewall installations were sent from Santo in Italy. Besides being packed extremely well, they are almost identical to the original. Side by side it almost looks like the original, it's just missing those small little dimples inside the square, but otherwise they're the same size. This one is also for sale online, but you really can't compare the two. And for the backing, this one is rubber, where the other one seems to be kind of felt. Ideally I would have liked to put the insulation in before the engine, but it wasn't available at the time. I'm removing the engine cover and the grille to get better access. I'm removing the old points ignition system to get more room, but I'm also going to replace it with the electronic one. I also now need to get the fuel lines out of the way to get better access. And then removing this aftermarket rubber cover which covers the top of the tank. Then to remove the hinges that hold on the engine cover. And then a few bolts to get this strip out of the way. Then disconnect the accelerator cable and then pull back the hose that goes to the heater tap. It needs to come out in order to go through the firewall insulation. As much as we tried to keep the original insulation in one piece, it really wasn't practical to do and it kept breaking apart in our hands. So a quick wipe down to remove any old dust and grit, and then start pulling off the cables that go to the top of the tank. For the Series 1 you need to make a small modification by cutting out these little squares. They make room for brackets that are on the firewall of the Series 1. This air duct is in the way and also attached to the firewall, so I'm going to have to modify the insulation to go around it, as removing this is not really an option. The external air scoop is married up to this ducting and it's held on by 3 mounting points. This one is broken. I'm going to cut a slit in the insulation so it goes around this point. So this section here is attached to the firewall and goes through the insulation at this point here. I'm going to cut right across there. And because of its location, there's no pulling stress on the material. Installing the insulation is not hard, but trying not to bend it is close to impossible. It needs to be manipulated and bent in order to fit. So it's now roughly in place and just making sure that everything's fitting in all the corners. I've reattached the fuel sender wires and putting the cover in place, but it's not fitting right. This one here is an original one, and the one I'm using is an aftermarket one. You can see the position of these holes are very different. Also the angle here is very different as well. I'm cutting off some extra material here to make room for the aftermarket cover. I believe the original one would have worked. You can see how this cover sits a little bit too high compared to the original. Attaching the retaining plate and then reconnecting all the fuel lines. Pushing the heater hose back and then reattaching all the hoses. A small casualty of trying to get this into the car with the engine in place were these wrinkles and the pattern slightly faded. And now to reinstall the electronic ignition. It's the same one I used before, but this time I'm replacing the coil with a new one. I then adjusted the timing and seems to be working well with the new coil. Reattaching the grille and the engine lid hinges. This is the engine lid from the car. You can see it's shiny and painted. This other one I have is a spare and has lots of little dents on it, but it will do the job for now till I get the other one powder coated. It's the right colour, but the other one is definitely better. Previously I found enough parts to make an original Chromodora mirror, but I need this piece chromed to match. I dropped off these parts last year, but now it's ready to pick up. It's quite a large factory and looks like they cover all different types of things, including bathroom wear. So this piece was once black and now chromed and looks great. I'm just reassembling the actual mirrors here, and you can probably see how I disassembled it in an earlier video. Now to remove the temporary mirrors and the base. I then attached a new base which fits the base of the Chromodora mirror, and then repeated the process on the driver's side. All these extra parts I have used on this build were period correct, but there were more dealer options for the time. But next time. I rebalance the wheels, I pull into this service station, and I drill out from rivets.